Sam Herndon, Emergency Management Director, who is a lifelong resident of Girardeau County. Sam has 4 years experience in the emergency management field and has 11 years experience as a first responder. He's going to tell us what he does. Give Sam a warm welcome.
It's like she just won a prize here. All right, so I want to thank you all for letting me come in tonight. I know I was here last year, so some of you may have seen some of this already, but hopefully it's some good information. Just like they said, I've lived here my whole life, started out in Oak Ridge, then moved just outside of Jackson, and I currently live in Jackson with my wife and 2 kids. I've been a licensed paramedic for 13 years. I was a firefighter for 7 years. Now I'm 5 years in the emergency management. I moved up a year this year. And I've been a registered scout for 34 years now, and been an Eagle Scout since '97. So I stay pretty busy outside of work with trying to work with today's youth, whether it be in scouts. I do coach some sports, just try and stay engaged in the community and help out where I can. All right, so just kind of real briefly on what emergency management does. I know a lot of people, whenever we talk to them, they think that we kind of just hang out, watch the world go by, and don't really do a whole lot. And some days it kind of feels like that because you don't really ever get anywhere. But we do actually have a lot of duties that we do, and our biggest thing is coordination. A lot of people want to call us and think that our job is to go out and do things, and unfortunately that's not what we get to do all the time. The biggest thing that we do is coordinate, so we have to know who to call in an incident and how to get things fixed. We don't get to be the ones to go out and fix those, which is unfortunate because sometimes that's what you'd like to do. So the biggest thing we do is build, sustain, and improve the capability to mitigate disasters. And we do that by meeting folks like you, folks in the community, and find out who we can call that can help us in an incident, develop relationships with other organizations. So if you called me and said that you had a family displaced with a house fire, we could call the correct people and try and get them help. We do a lot of preparation, do a lot of training to try and figure out how to respond and recover from natural disasters, acts of terrorism, and other man-made disasters. Unfortunately for us, acts of terrorism is something that we just don't have a whole lot of resources for, but that's something that we're always trying to look at improving as we go along. And then our last big role is to encourage families to be prepared. Just curious, in this room, how many people have an emergency plan in their house that they're prepared with, whether it be emergency supplies, if you've got folks at home maybe with disabilities, are you prepared for those? Unfortunately, most people are not, especially our younger generations. They're not ready. They just expect when something happens that things will just magically appear to help them. And that's unfortunately not the case, as a lot of people find out when they do have a disaster. All right, so with emergency management, we have 4 pieces to the cycle. The first one is preparedness, and that's where we have to start first and foremost, is getting people prepared as far as making plans. The goal for us is to have a plan for everything. Unfortunately, that's not possible. And the plans that we put together are only as good as the paper we print them on if we don't exercise them, use them, review them, make sure that they work, go over them with other people. So for us, a little bit later on, we'll kind of touch on kind of what our county plan looks like and how it's set up. And we do spend time every year going over that, making sure that it is still current, making sure that things can still apply for the community, and making sure that all the people who are supposed to be a part of that plan know they're supposed to be a part of it. So when a disaster comes, they know that their phone's going to be ringing. We're going to be looking for them. The next step in that is response. So for us, a response seems more like your fire departments, law enforcement, things like that. They're going to come out and fix whatever goes and gets broken. But it does dive a lot deeper than that. In a disaster, there's so many pieces to the puzzle as far as when someone gets displaced, how do we house them? How do we track them? How do we handle debris? A lot of incidences when you hear hot washes afterwards, things that they didn't do, was figure out how to sort the debris. All right, so if a tornado comes through, something that most of us wouldn't think about is we're gonna pile it up in a field and somebody's gonna come scoop it up and haul it away. Well, somebody's gotta pay for that, right? So if you don't sort it, when you pile it, you won't get reimbursed. And a lot of people don't realize that until they've got 10, 15 acres full of debris that no one's gonna pay to haul off. And now it's stuck in a farmer's field. And I don't know about you, but if my farm field was full of debris and I couldn't use it for anything else, I wouldn't want it to be there forever. So I'd want somebody to get it out. So those are things that we have to deal with, is how to respond. How are we gonna sort that out? How are we gonna get supplies to the people that need it? So if you needed to go to a shelter, how are we gonna get the shelter equipment to you, whether it be cots, food, things like that? So that's all into our response on how we're gonna get everything that you need, not just so much the search and rescue, structural collapse, things like that. And then recovery. So recovery is huge. And it's actually something that starts from the moment the disaster begins, which is kind of weird to say. You have to start figuring out how you're gonna rebuild as soon as the disaster starts. Some folks don't start planning that for months afterwards, and that only hurts the citizens. And that's something that we're trying to make sure when a disaster happens, first thing everybody wants to do, and we saw it when the hurricanes came through, right? Everybody wanted to send down supplies or money. Well, somebody's got to be able to take that and know what to do with it, right? So the biggest thing is if you guys wanted to say, hey, we're going to donate $1,000 to the relief efforts of a disaster. Well, when that money gets there, they have to know where it goes, right? So a lot of our folks find out we don't have a bank account set up. So we've went out, we've got an account established. So if a disaster happened right now, we could immediately post, hey, send your money here, and all that money is going to go to a bank account that's solely what that purpose is for. It's not managed by the county, it's managed by another organization, and then we would have a committee come in and help determine where that money goes. So it's not going to go through the county, it's going to sit there when that long-term recovery committee comes in and all of the public assistance and all that is established, then that money is going to go to help those people who don't have any assistance, is how that's set up. And unfortunately, a lot of places don't do that until months after the fact, and that becomes a problem because now if you need help getting your roof put on your house and you didn't have that assistance, there's no money for you because they don't have any way to spend it. So you've got to make sure those pieces are all put together, making sure you know how you're going to rebuild, if there's grants out there, if there's assistance out there to help people. So that's important to get that piece going right off the bat. And then the last piece is mitigation. So the biggest thing for us is it's kind of more of a piece of like preparedness. It's how can we prevent things from happening. So we were talking when I first got here with our new facility. It's built to FEMA standards, correct? So we built it to withstand tornadoes up to 200-mile-an-hour winds. But they did not do everything they should have done to make sure that it could stand an earthquake. So we had a group come in and do a seismic evaluation. And we were like, hey, start at our building. It'll be a good place to educate us what you're looking for before we go out to the schools, firehouses, things like that we were doing in those 2 days. Well, things were missed that we wouldn't think about because it looks like it's correct. So we had to have the contractors come back in, see what they missed, and make sure it was fixed. So it was good that we caught it. So now that our facility is up to standard with the building codes that they needed to be to withstand earthquakes and tornadoes, which is good for us, especially where we live. All right. So routine activities. So I know I said a lot of people think we just sit around and watch the world go by. So this is kind of just a snapshot of the things that we do on a regular basis. The first one is review and update our disaster plan. We try and get it reviewed and updated at least once a year, if not twice a year, kind of depending on how things develop. For me, and as sad as it is I can learn from everybody else's disasters. So as we see things develop, we learn what we can do better for our own disasters. So sometimes that helps us want to go in and fix our plan to update, hey, that's what we were going to do. It didn't work for those guys. Maybe we should see something else, and learn from other counties. Monitor countywide activities. So this can be kind of as simple as just watching the weather. You know, if we got storms coming in a couple of days out, we start monitoring the weather. When it looks like we may be having ice coming in or a chance for severe weather, we want to start putting together some of those resources, making sure our fire departments are aware of what's coming, and kind of get a beat on the pulse of what they may be doing to prepare if they're going to house more personnel on duty, things like that, just so that way we know what's going on. I try to keep up with all the big events going on in the county, but sometimes that's tough to do, so that way we can help. One of the things we can do for big events is if, like the SEMO Fair, when it comes to town, we can get the weather service to give us daily updates on that area, so that way we know what the weather's coming in specific to the fair, so that way we can help them make decisions. Big concerts, big events, they can help us make sure that we can keep those folks informed if there's severe weather coming in. And if the event is large enough, they'll actually come and house somebody here and monitor the weather during the event. We monitor and test our communications capabilities. That's kind of become a little bit easier now that we've switched everything over to the state wide system, but we do have local frequencies that we do have to check and make sure that they are up and running. One of them, we just have to make sure that the heat's on in the winter, make sure that the air conditioner's on in the summer so the equipment doesn't go bad on us. And then we test it, try and test it once a month to make sure it's working. And it's our frequency for our office to use in the event of a disaster, but it's also a backup frequency for our volunteer fire departments. So if the state system was to go down, they would utilize that system to communicate until it came back online. So it's important that we keep that running in as good a shape as possible, just in case. Regular communications with all of our emergency managers in the county. So there's actually 4 paid emergency management directors. So there's one for the city of Jackson, city of Cape, those are their fire chiefs. The university has one, and then myself. So what we do is we get together once a month, and it's really a good opportunity for us just to kind of discuss new things going on in the department. How would we respond to incidents? You know, what we're doing to prepare. Are we putting in for any new grants? Have we got new personnel that possibly needs trained, or any issues that we're running into? So if we're running into issues with other organizations that we're working with, we can kind of talk those out and see if maybe somebody else is having the same problems, to see if there's something we could do to build those relationships and make sure that we're prepared. Maintain an inventory and resources of equipment. So this one's kind of tough. You know, funds are always limited, but we do always try and look for grants to see what equipment we could possibly get. We was at a meeting today, and most of us have kind of heard about the lithium ion factory, our warehouse that caught on fire up around Fredericktown, and so we had a discussion. What could we be doing in our area to help make sure folks are prepared if something like that happens again? Because I believe the intent is they're going to rebuild that facility, and making sure that our area, because our folks went up there from Cape and Jackson, went up and helped with that. So what can we do to make sure our folks are better prepared, especially if something similar to that happens here, especially with the hazardous chemicals that came out. The biggest thing we're going to try and push for is more training in the area for those types of events and that kind of hazardous chemicals that are going through the airway to help keep us safe. And then we communicate with our regional coordinator so we can make sure we stay up to date with the state and all the changing policies that they have, and things that they've got going on up there with new policies, or for us, how can we get things reimbursed in an incident to help keep our community up and running. Some other things that we do is conduct annual tabletops. So like I said, our plan is only as good as what we can use it for. So one of the things we try and do is we try and do tabletops with all of our community partners at least once a year. Something we've discussed countywide is doing a large scale event where we actually get out and get the folks and do a functional exercise. I don't know how that's going to work as far as getting people to come in and be willing to be subjects and try and utilize everything from our law enforcement all the way through to the hospital. Utilize some of our resources as far as, you know, if we call and ask for building supplies or large equipment from some of our local vendors, is that going to get to us and how that looks? So it's a massive undertaking. It's not been done in a long time. So that's something we're looking at trying to get done sometime maybe 2025, early 26. Something we're looking at. One of the things for us with our new facility is we want to test it out and see if it actually works the way that we thought it would when we designed it. That's our biggest goal in 2025, early 2025, is does it work the way we intended it to, and is there anything we can do better to help in an emergency. Monitor our weather activities. Like I said, you know, we monitor those. We communicate with the National Weather Service. We get regular messages every day, even when it's nice out, just kind of letting us know what's going on around the area. And then we also do weekly conference calls with them. We work on and maintain the county warning system for all of our tornado sirens. So we are fortunate, I don't know if you guys saw that we are getting another siren in the county. We were fortunate we got a grant at no cost to us that we are gaining one more siren. It's going to go out to Trail of Tears, which is nice because they had asked us probably a year and a half ago to get one, and we just didn't have the funding because they cost about $33,000 to get a new one put in. We were fortunate a grant opportunity opened up this fall. We applied for it, and that was fortunately one of the things that they were trying to do was get sirens in. So we're going to help grow that system, and we're trying to figure out ways to maintain the system we've got without having to go out and replace the sirens, because at $33,000 a piece, that's tough to do. And we'd always like to put more out. I mean, unfortunately, if I showed you a map of what they covered, once you get out of the two major cities, the coverage just isn't there. And that's just because we could put in another 40 and still be missing coverage. But we just don't have the funds to do that. So hopefully we can continue to grow that system. And then we apply for grants, look for funding so we can get new equipment. And then we periodically check in with the state, let them know what our status is down here through their operating system. And then these are just some of the tasks that we do as emergency management. We attend our monthly meetings. We conduct the EMAC COAD. So this organization is where we get together with the community partners. We do that quarterly. We meet together and discuss what's going on in our agencies, which is good for us because we can learn what community counseling's doing, what the Red Cross has got going on, Salvation Army, First Call for Help, those kind of groups, figure out and hear what they've got going on. Sometimes the hospitals are able to make it, which is good to hear what they've got going on so that we can all be prepared, find ways to help, and just hear what's going on throughout the community. And this would also be the group that's going to help us do our long-term recovery. So how we recover in an incident. We participate in the quarterly CMO EMA meetings where we get together with everyone from Region E, discuss what's going on in their communities. This is how we learn, network. So if a disaster happens in Cape County, we know that we've got partners coming in to help us. And then We participate in the quarterly RSOC meetings. RSOC is the Regional Homeland Security Oversight Committee. They help us fund major equipment. We've had a few pieces of equipment like our mobile morgue in the county that has been funded through that. Our local hazmat team gets a lot of funding for them as well. So it's important we participate there and make sure that money's going to organizations that are going to use it appropriately. We attend quarterly Southeast Healthcare Coalition meetings. This meeting is important to help us know what's going on in the hospitals, in the nursing homes. It allows us to help participate in nursing home drills as far as how to evacuate. What are we going to do in a disaster, so we can learn, do all of our nursing homes have generators? If they lose power, do they have the ability to hook a generator up and keep that facility going without having to move everybody out? So it's good to know what's going on healthcare-wise throughout the state and especially in our region. We coordinate our SEMA LEPD, which is our local emergency planning district. It's an 8-county group that I'm the chair of, and so we discuss hazmat issues in the 8-county area. So that's where we talked about, like the chemicals coming out of that lithium-ion fire and things that we can do to help get folks trained in here and better prepared for incidents like that. We coordinate our quarterly 911 advisory board meetings. So this one is not as much fun as it used to be. One, because the funds aren't there, and two, there's not much of a need. Most of the funds go, as technology has improved, we go to help fund and pay for all the 911 system. Used to, we had to decide how we were going to pay for phone lines. All that's kind of been streamlined with technology. So we're really just more there now to make sure that the technology is working the way it's supposed to and be a voice with those companies as we need repairs or to make sure that the money is being spent appropriately for 911 funds. And then just kind of the coordinating agency for the county 911 system. Part of my duties is to be the coordinator of the 911 system, and we just make sure if there's needs, we can advocate for those in the 911 system for the county dispatch center and Cape Cities. So we had talked about our emergency response plan, and the last time I was here, we kind of discussed this a little bit, and then there were some questions on how it works. So our emergency response plan, it starts out with a basic plan, which is about 25 pages, and really it's just your standard, when to activate, who to call, that sort of thing. But then we operate like the rest of the state under what's called an emergency support functions. And those are just a grouping of government, private sector agencies, certain capabilities, and organizational structure to provide support and resources, program implementation, emergency services that we need. So these are our 15 emergency support functions. So this is how everything's broken up. So I'll show you some pictures of our new facility here in a little bit, and you'll be able to see. So in a disaster, say we have a tornado, all 15 of these groups will come in, and there'll be representation, and they'll have their own ability and their own tasks that they have to do to communicate with the folks on the ground. Biggest things, housing, mass care, emergency assistance, that one is key, in ESF 6. If we have people displaced, how are we gonna get them housing? That's a big one. So if we lose half the county to tornadoes, how are we going to get those citizens into housing, which is key. Some other things that are important on here is if we lose power, how are we going to get power back? Who do we need to contact to get more resources in here to get the electrical system back up and running? Transportation. So if we have bridges go down, how do we get people throughout the county help if they need it? So that group has a map and is working to kind of keep those bridges maintained throughout the county to make sure that they're functional. One of the things that they'll be tasked with is making sure we have routes throughout the county for people to be able to navigate through in the event of a disaster. But These are 15 working groups. I would say after the ESF6 with the mass care, the most important one after that is going to be logistics, and that's going to be coordinating all the equipment that we have in the county and coordinating what's coming to us, whether it be from state or federal resources. So each one of these ESFs has their own operating plan that all of these individuals who would run that are aware of, and it also has appendixes. So if you had to come in and run, we'll say the energy ESF, you could go through that plan and it would have the phone numbers you need to call. We've got maps for who has what electric company in the county, so that way we know who to call if specific areas are out. And then it kind of gives you guidelines on how to bring those people in, what resources you're going to need to help out.
Sam, while you've got that slide up there, who handles the fatalities?
So that's the coroner.
Is what position is he in there? Is that part of the mass care?
So that's going to go in. He's in two places actually. That's going to go into your mass care and your public health is where he would land. And so we have in the county a list of what every morgue in the county can hold. And then we also have the mobile morgue trailer, which can hold another 24. So when we get our new coroner in a couple of weeks, that'll be one of the tasks that we'll get with him on, is making sure he understands the equipment that they have, making sure he knows his part and who to contact, and make sure he doesn't have any questions. So yeah, good question. So yeah, some of these, and I tried to bring up, we've got it broken down to where these all kind of cross with each other and who takes the primary lead. I couldn't figure out how to get that work in the slideshow and not be all jumbled up, but we do have to where some of these cross with each other. And when we get to that slide a little later on, you'll kind of see we've got a group with the people that they'll be working with. So these are all the resources that we maintain currently right now from our office. So we have 2 small animal response trailers and 1 large animal response trailer that are primarily owned by the health department. They got those on a grant. We're currently working with, and I think tomorrow we're going to finish up, they're kind of repurposing those trailers to make those a little bit more functional. So 1 trailer is going to be able to house humans, citizens, and their pets. So we have not had that ability before. So before, if you had to be put in a shelter, your pets had to go to one place and you went to the other. And I know a lot of folks won't do that. They're going to go with their pets. So one of the things that we're working through is getting these trailers kind of set up in a way to where one of those we can do citizens and their pets. Household pets, you know, not farm animals, but your cats, dogs, things like that. And if you have horses and other farm animals, you're going to have to put those off in another shelter. But the health department thought that would be a great way to kind of keep people a little more comfortable, is that they could bring their cats with them, dogs with them, and be able to be at the same shelter. So we're supposed to be moving cots tomorrow, and I think that project will be finished, which is a good change, I think. And then we have the mass casualty trailer. So one of the things that we have to do with it is it has to be ran every month to make sure that the cooler works, make sure the generator works. Because if we need it, that's not a trailer that we can afford to not be functioning. So we do maintenance on it. We're fortunate, and you'll see I've got some pictures of some of our equipment. We were able to upgrade our flood response trailer from what it currently was to what we've got now. So we're fortunate to be able to replace it because it was in pretty bad shape. And then our mobile command center, that's a nice functional piece because we can send it close to where the disaster area is, give our first responders and folks that are kind of working that command center a place out of the weather, out of the way where the news media is constantly hounding them for updates, and give them a place to kind of communicate, talk with the folks that are actually out there doing the work, and develop a plan and communicate back with us without having any issues. So as most everybody probably already knows, this is what our new facility looks like. We're fortunate that we were able to get a facility that there's not another one like it on this part of the state. So we're fortunate to be able to reset an asset for our county as well as other counties if they need it. So it's not the prettiest from the outside. I won't lie to you. But when we were putting the design work into it, we felt like functionality and cost saving was more important. I wanted a window, but the cost of those was more than what it should be, I felt like. So we don't have any windows in the facility. But it is rated for up to 200 mile an hour winds. The doors can handle a 2x4 shot at it at 150 miles an hour. So we feel pretty comfortable that we're going to be able to be safe and be able to respond to citizens in need of this facility. So some of the features that we felt were important is we wanted to make sure we built it to safe room standards. Obviously, because if the facility's not there, we're no good to anybody to get resources in. We also have it as a fueling station, so if you ever drive through that way, the sheriff's department is a lot more noticed in that area because that's where they get all their fuel. So all of their vehicles drive through there a couple times a week filling up. That's also where we get our fuel. And in a disaster, that's where we can get like our highway department fueled up as well, so they don't have to keep going back to their shop to keep them out clearing roadways. We have our whole building's got a generator that is supposed to be able to run with the full fuel tank for 72 hours before it has to be filled up. So it gives us 3 days to figure out how we're going to get fuel in if we have road closures, bridges down, things like that. So that gives us 3 days plus what fuel we have. And we can kind of serve that. I mean, I get, it's not a long time, but we do have a 1,000-gallon fuel tank on site that I try and keep at least half full is my goal. So that'll give us at least another day and a half. So with fuel on site, we should be able to go 4.5, close to 5 days. And that's if we run everything at full capacity. We can obviously turn things off and conserve fuel if we feel like we're not going to be able to get fuel in. But the county does have other fuel tanks like at the highway shed that we can get our own fuel in if we can get those folks there until we can get help. So
we were in Asheville for Hurricane Helene. I can tell you some stories.
Yeah. So I might need to hear some so we can get better prepared. So it's the biggest generator that the county has at any of its facilities, and it's pretty good size. So we're hoping that it does the need. It was probably the biggest that we could get to stay within our budget on that. Meeting and training space. So something we haven't had a lot of space with is being able to do our own trainings. We've always had to go borrow space from other places. So now we've actually got 4 trainings scheduled next year to help us do some emergency management planning, public information training, which is all stuff that we need. Because one of the worst things we can do is give the wrong information the wrong way in a disaster, because then that's not doing anybody any good. So we're fortunate to be able to have that space to do that. And then obviously we have our storage and then our communication center, which is key. One of the things that we're going to do after the first of the year is we are going to purchase updated ham radio equipment. The equipment that we currently have, when they came in to check it out, was not in, it was in good shape, but they recommended we upgrade it. So we do have folks from the ham club that do come in and they do help us with that. I don't know that we can meet all their needs, unfortunately, but I think we'll be able to get them to where we can communicate with those guys. Some of the needs they got just the size of the antennas that they need. It's just not something that we can do at this time. But maybe down the road we can find a better way to kind of help get all their needs met. And then we designed it with a multi-agency response. So with this, it's designed, when we kind of go through some pictures, if you've not got to see it yet, we can use this for more than one agency if need be. So if other agencies' facilities are damaged, we can try and bring them in as well to give them a place to operate out of in a disaster until they can get a better facility. So this is kind of the layout while it was being built. Some people kind of think it looks a little goofy, and it does from up at the top. But there's a reason we kind of design it this way. So the thought is, in a disaster, if we have equipment coming in and out, so this is our main entrance right here. So the thought is we can come in the entrance, come over here, drop off equipment, and then they can leave, or they can come over here and pick up equipment, drop off up here as well. But the main thought is, especially with semis, if we're bringing in donations, one way in, one way out, so we're not running into each other. That was our thought behind it. We wanted it to be a little bit tighter, but just the geographic layout of the space we had to kind of move it.
Where is that?
So if you take the LaSalle exit, so you just go up the interstate, the exit 102, turn right. The first street there is Veterans Memorial Drive. Turn right up it. You can't miss us. We're the only thing there amongst a bunch
Right
of.
on 55, it's on the right-hand side,
Yeah.
going north.
Yeah, so you can see us from the interstate, especially right now that everything's kind of dying off and been mowed. You can definitely see us pretty well. But it's got about 40 parking spots for all the folks that are going to be inside. The layout of the building looks like this. So most of it is shop, which is fantastic because we got all the equipment we got to store. But this room right here is our operations center. So this is where all the folks who are going to be doing all the work, kind of helping plan how to mitigate and recover from the disaster are going to be. We do have a functioning kitchen, so that way if we're there for multiple days or we've got folks working long days, we can make sure that we can keep those people hydrated and fed. We do have multiple restrooms in the facility. We've got one out in the shop here for these folks working out here, and we do have 3 right here in this space. This one right here does have a shower in it, so if we have folks that are there for multiple days, that way they can kind of help feel normal while they're there, try and keep them clean. Then we also have my office and my deputy's office right here, a small conference room, and I almost feel a little bit embarrassed, but we've learned from previous incidents. So the conference room is laid off directly across the hall from the operations center. So in a disaster, that is for, we'll say public officials, to give them a place that we can kind of help communicate with them and give them direction without them kind of overstepping and making phone calls that aren't necessary or kind of hindering our response, I guess is the best way to do that. It seems kind of silly, but in a lot of ways that's necessary to keep them from making phone calls to the wrong people and kind of doubling a response or slowing down a response because we're trying to work on it through the appropriate channels as they're trying to make phone calls over that. And it slows everything down because then they have to recall us to verify everything. So we kind of put that across from there to give them a place to where we can still utilize them, but we can also make sure that they're getting the appropriate information and make sure that they're calling who needs to be called. And then we have our communications room here, which is important, so that way we can communicate with the folks that are actually out there doing the work, and we can also communicate with folks, citizens out there through our ham radio network. So this right here is what our operations center looks like. The only thing that's not out right now is the phones. So in a disaster, every table will have its own phone. It's got its own phone line. So that way, I'm not answering the phone for the transportation folks. They can call and communicate that away. If for some reason the phone lines are down, we do have satellite phone capabilities to communicate as well. So this room, only one screen is down, but on the far side where that window is by the American flag is another screen. So we do have the ability when we're all set up. So in all 4 corners, there's a TV, and there's also 2 displays up front. So we can have 6 displays going at one time, which is fantastic because this corner up here is solely just for watching radar. That's all we do. with it, so we can constantly have the radar going. And then we can have 5 tables throwing up work that they've got going on. So that way we can kind of see what everybody else is doing. So that way we can know if we have a search and rescue team out, we can throw up what they're seeing right here. They've got software that we can see what they've got going on, so we can see who's marked housing, things like that, so that we know what's been searched, if we have fatalities, where they are, so that we can kind of have a better response plan. But out here in the middle where all these tables are, each one of these is kind of like-minded folks and ESFs that would all be kind of similar. So that way if they're looking for something as far as structural collapse, these guys have search and rescue, they can be communicating together and make sure that they know what's going on without duplicating efforts. This is our communications room. It looks small in this picture. It's not huge by any means, but this is where we have all of our different radios connected in, our tornado siren systems up here, and then these are some of our mobile radios that we can deploy. This room is separate from all the rest of the rooms. It's on backup to the backup, so it will run for, I think they said 8 hours on its own system if the generator fails, so we'll still have communication capabilities even if the generator doesn't kick on before it runs out. So this is our shop area. This is all the equipment that we've currently got in there. So it's pretty tight right now, but we can still manage to get everything in and out of there pretty quickly, which is nice. Over here on this side, we've got our generator with light tower, our mobile moored, one of our trucks for moving trailers. This is our new flood trailer, and this little guy that's all rusted up, barely sitting off the ground, that's our old flood trailer. It was a repurposed homemade trailer at one point from years and years and years ago. It leaks, it's difficult to pull, so we're fortunate that we were able to upgrade that. And then we've got our hazmat response trailer here in the back. This right here is our mobile command center. Then we've got our animal trailers right here, and this one's our mass care trailer that's full of cots. So if we have to set up a shelter, we got about 130 cots on there we can get set up immediately. This is just kind of our workstation. We've got some more storage up here, so this is all masks, gloves, things like that if we were to ever need them, or if a facility needed them, we've got them there. And then we've got our workbench so we can work on stuff, forklift to move things around. And I know we're getting tight on time, so I got about 10 minutes beforehand for questions. So, is there any questions? I saw some notes being taken.
I have lots
Thanks.
of questions, but we'll open it up here. Yeah, let's see if this is going to work, because it wasn't working earlier. Okay, raise your hands and I'll come around. Hello, hello. Good. All right. There you go.
Okay, I'm talking in. Can everybody hear? So there's Cape County Ordinance 6-1. It was signed back in 2006, and it's a quarantine and isolation ordinance. One line says individuals with a suspected or active quarantinable disease and contacts to the case may be quarantined or isolated as the particular situation requires. What would be your part in this, and how do you feel about this?
So our part in it is we would work with the health department. So just like in the last incident we had that everybody knows is still fresh with communicable disease, the health department was the lead. So we would just assist them in any resources or needs that they have as far as that ordinance.
How do you feel about that?
As far as quarantining people, I mean, I don't know that my office can do anything to make you stay at home. I don't know that we have that ability, so I don't want to say that I agree or disagree with it. I know that I can't make you stay home. You're an adult. You're going to make those decisions on your own.
I'm more concerned about some elected official coming to my home and taking my grandchildren out and quarantining them somewhere. I'll stay home. If I see people dying on the streets and that there's a really, serious thing going on, I'm gonna stay home. I have self-preservation, but I don't want government officials coming into my home and taking my loved ones out and taking them down the road to some quarantine center.
Sure. So what I would hope in that instance is I would hope that the elected officials would utilize the recommendations from our office and the health department before they try to go to those measures. And my belief or opinion would be, much like you said, we can recommend that you stay home. We can't force you to stay home.
Well, this thing, if you haven't read it lately, and you can have my copy, there's penalties. I mean.
So is that still current?
Yes.
It is.
We've talked to Clint Tracy about it, and he sees it as a tool. And actually, the Southeast Missouri University tried to use it in 2021. They were not following the dictates of that ordinance. The health department apparently wasn't even involved in it, but they sent that out to the college students that they would be quarantined and with the penalties that are involved in that ordinance. So we found out about it and talked to Clint Tracy, and somehow some magic wands were pulled and the college took it down because they weren't utilizing it correctly to begin with. But they were going to try to use it if they hadn't gotten caught.
Okay. I mean, I'll be happy to take it. I'll definitely look over it for sure and see. And I don't have a problem having those conversations. I mean, as far as our office goes, we can't make you stay home. That's not what we're here for. But I'll be happy to look it over and have those conversations.
Yeah.
And even talk it over with the health department for sure and see if there's any changes that can be made and make sure that it's current and up to date and doesn't need to be revised for sure.
What's your understanding of the current cell phone towers? Are they all working? There was one out for a long time. I don't know if it's back on. Do you know anything about that? Just
As far as I know, all the towers are working. I don't know that there's any down. I can always contact if it's whether it be AT&T or whoever and find out. But as far as I understand that they're all up and working correctly right now. And I do know if there is an incident and towers go down, AT&T has mobile units that we can request and have brought into the area to get that service back up. We wanted to try and house one here in the county. They don't do that. So we were trying to just get one here all the time just in case. But they can be here supposed to be here, I believe, within half a day to a day once we request them.
so with the ham radio, do you occasionally test that, or how can ham operators know what frequency? Let's say all the cell towers are down, we got a solar flare, everything got fried. What would you say as a ham person? Where would I tune in to get emergency information?
I would love to tell you that, but I'm going to just be honest, I can't because I'm not a ham operator.
So
The Amateur Ham
They
Club,
work under you, or you work under them?
as far as the ham radio, so we house their equipment and we have them come in. So anytime there's an event that we need them, they'll send some members in from their club and they'll communicate on their network. And I would love to tell you what that is, but I don't have the ability to use the radio. So they test them and all that. They maintain them. It's just housed at our facility.
So
and
one of
they
those
provide us.
volunteers would come in an emergency time to be that person to send out?
They do. We typically have the one individual. His name is Ernie. Is typically the one that comes in. He would be the one that would come in, and then. Larry, their president, he sends me emails and we communicate back and forth. And when it comes to equipment needs that they have, we just communicate back and forth and they come in and take care of it. It's our equipment, but until we become ham operators, we really can't use the equipment.
Last question. Why are you doing I'm just curious, the tornado siren at Trail of Tears? Is that in the state park or just P&G area?
So it's in the state.
It seems like an isolated area to me. I'm just curious why you decided to put it there.
So the short answer is because it was requested of us by them. They asked if we could help them find funding.
Who's they?
The state park. Yeah, so the state's trying to get more sirens in their state parks for the community members that are out there in the case of an incident.
For like campers?
Campers, people hiking, people swimming at Lake Bowden, things like that, to alert them that, hey, there's weather coming in. We were fortunate we had the ability to get a grant that was going to be at no cost to us, but we had a very short window. We had like a week and a half, 2 weeks to get turnaround. In that site, we had one picked out already. We knew where it was going to go, and we knew we could meet the window of opportunity to get that. We didn't have time to go out and survey and find the property and get all the easements and stuff in that window. So that was an opportunity we had. So that's why we picked that area.
Okay, we're just gonna take a pause, and I apologize, we're not stopping. But we're gonna get Representative Justin Sparks, because it's a Zoom, it was just a last minute thing. And so we're gonna get him on, and then we're gonna finish with questions and answers, okay? Is that right? Or you can keep doing questions and answers while I'm trying to get the Zoom call going up. How about that? If you want to.
Okay, anybody else have questions?
But
Go ahead.
Did you learn anything from what happened in Tennessee and North Carolina as far as disaster relief or preparedness for anything out there?
So we did, I'll tell you. So from the Mayfield tornado, that's where we learned a lot about debris removal and reimbursement and costs and how that has to be sorted. We also learned that they tried to utilize a plan that is set up for the New Madrid seismic zone, and it didn't work very well. So we were able to go back and review how we operate, and does it meet kind of what they were doing, and make adjustments to parts of the plan that they noticed didn't work for them.
That was a pretty big disaster out there. I don't know anybody could be prepared for what happened.
Right.
But, also, with the sirens,
Mm-hmm.
do you have any kind of a plan if there was not a natural disaster, but say, incoming missile attack or something like that? Would the sirens go off, or how would you tell people to take cover or whatever?
So to be honest with you, we don't have a procedure for sounding that. That could potentially be something we look at, honestly, to get that message out. But that's currently not anything that we have the system set up for. It would definitely work well for that, for sure, but we don't have anything set up to do that right now. But we could definitely look at it and see. One of the ways that we would probably be able to do that is we're working on upgrading our mass notification system. And so one of the things that we're looking at is being able to communicate with all the residents that have their phone numbers with the residents. So that way, every household in the county would get an alert that says we have incoming, and then whatever we have incoming. So that's something we're looking at, would probably be our fastest way to get that information out.
Well, I go back to the old civil defense era,
Mm-hmm.
and we used the sirens back in those days.
Yeah.
For that reason, that's why I asked. So.
Yeah, we currently don't have a system set up for that, but I don't have a problem looking and seeing if other people do and seeing how they do it, seeing what their policy is for that. Something we would just have to make some adjustments with our system in the way it sounds, so it would not sound similar to a tornado.
Yeah.
So we would have to just probably do some reprogramming, I would assume, on how that system is set up. But we can definitely look and see if there's other people that utilize it for that and see how they do it, for sure.
And I think, like Rita said, the people out in Asheville area in North Carolina, I've got a grandson out there trying to get the water hooked back up to those poor people out there.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I don't care what you see on TV and what the news is telling you, it's 100 times worse than what it is, what they're showing you.
Well, I'm sure. I'm
So,
sure it definitely is.
That's
not
what I'm
pleasant.
saying, I'm not too sure anything you plan, if
Right.
you have something like that
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, And unfortunately, you know, it's like we kind of said earlier, your plans are only as good as the paper you write them on if you don't exercise them. And it's tough to exercise something to that extent because, you know, you can sit here and imagine it all day, but you don't take it serious until it hits there. So it would be tough to even be close to being prepared for losing pretty much everything at one time.
So, we were camping on the Blue Ridge Parkway prior to the hurricane, and they closed the Blue Ridge Parkway in our campground. We evacuated to Asheville. I would say the biggest challenge, well, one of the biggest challenge we had is cell phones went down, cable went down, TV went down, internet went down. My family here knew more what was going on in Asheville than we did, and we were in the town. So, in the case of something like that, how do you get word out to the citizens? I mean, there were interstates, we were hearing rumors of interstates closing, you know, no way out, blah, blah, blah. And we even had a fire department across the little road from us that we could walk to. And they would post something from their MoDOT or whatever it was called as to road situations the best they could on their door. But how do you get word to the citizens about what is actually happening right here where the catastrophe is occurring?
Can we come back to that?
Sure.
Thank you for, all right,